some might call BS on this one, but I assure you that it is, in fact, a true story. Anybody that knows me will attest to the fact that I have a wall full of backpacks in my man cave. In 2016, I decided I needed another one. I was looking at 3 major brands, and I settled on one. It worked out well for about a year and a half. But it wasn't until my buddy Jake killed a cow elk off the end of this ridge. Now, it shouldn't have been a tough hike out, but that pack crushed me. It just did not perform well with that kind of weight in it. Now, in full disclosure, that winter is when I met Aaron. And Aaron got me pointed in the direction of Kifaru. Rest of that winter and into the spring, I did a bunch of training hikes in preparation for an 8-day trip into the Frank Church. That pack performed flawlessly. And then that following fall, between myself and friends, I ended up packing out 5 animals. Well, the next few years, I've used that pack a bunch. And now I think I can give you a pretty fair assessment on it. That pack is going to be heavier than any pack you've ever owned. But when you need it, it's not going to let you down. Today, I use the 44 mag on elk hunts and overnight trips. And then most of the time, I'm using the Striker pack. That Striker pack is so versatile, it'll blow your mind. So, you're looking for a pack, don't do what I did. Go right to the top. Kifaru International. Check them out on their website. You won't be disappointed. What's going on, buddy?
What up, what up, what up?
Number 200. I can't hardly believe it.
I know it. Yeah, 200th episode.
It seems like only 6 years ago.
What year did you start this?
July. I think the first episode was July of 18.
July of 18.
Yeah.
So that's
how old were you then?
Almost
you
3
ain't
years.
Still in high school?
Bro, I graduated in 2010.
Don't make me edit something out of the intro. I've never had to do that before. Welcome to this week's episode of Stickbow Chronicles, brought to you by Black Widow Bows, and it is the 200th episode, so it's pretty cool. A story that a lot of you, like most everybody, doesn't know about this podcast. 2017, I was struggling with some shooting issues, man. I've been shooting a stick bow since 1989 or 1990. So 2016, I was really frustrated. I had some shooting issues, and I bought a compound to compete in the what the heck was that called? When you run around and shoot targets.
Oh, the Train to Hunt?
Yeah, Train to Hunt. Yeah. So my buddy Jake, him and I were a team, and I didn't tell him because he lives hours away. So I bought a Matthews, and I was shooting the heck out of it because there's only so many burpees a guy can do, and when you miss targets, you got to do burpees. So I bought a compound. I shot that summer, and I actually hunted with it. I think I hunted with it even, and then I sold it and bought a laptop to start the Stickbow Chronicles. So there you go, a little tidbit of information. I was shooting a compound for about 8 months.
I've got to get some pictures of that Train to Hunt. So there's got to be pictures somewhere.
Dude, there is a photo. There is a photo of me. I'm not vomiting, but I'm so close. I was trying to hide in the brush, and my wife took a photo of all people. My wife took this photo, and I am bent over dying. But Jake and I took first place.
There you go.
Yeah. No, it was awesome. That was awesome, man. That was a blast. I really enjoyed that.
Now, the Alpha Bow Hunting, I'll give a plug for Mr. Phil Mendoza at Alpha Bow Hunting. He does a really cool deal down there, too. I competed in it 2 or 3 years ago. I had some extra vacation time, flew up to Denver, and Cameron and I shot in it. Man, it was a blast. He's got awesome prizes. He's got a stick bow division. Whenever I shot in it, I shot in the compound division, but no, it was a blast. I came home with some pretty cool stuff. So
Well, they had a division for stick bows, but it was like at that one station, it was a 45-yard shot. So you had to do 10 weighted box step-ups and 10 burpees or something, then take a 45-yard shot. And if you missed, you had to do another 10 burpees. I'm like, there's only so many burpees you can do in a day. I am not hitting a 45-yard vital on a whitetail. But anyways, so just so everybody knows, the Stick Bow Chronicles was started by selling a compound bow and buying a laptop. So there you have it.
I didn't even know that story.
Yep. Freaking bones out of the closet. That was like 8 months out of 30 years of shooting a stick bow or something. But anyways, yeah.
Here we are, 200th episode, and Aaron hollered at us earlier and said, hey, I want in. Let's record the 200th episode, so it only seemed fitting to have him on. He's obviously, I've only been around for about 25% of all the episodes, but Aaron's obviously been a huge part of it. And just us kind of BSing with Aaron.
Yep, absolutely. Just a BS session, and those are my favorite ones. There's no real work involved. Just make sure I don't say anything stupid. And
I have a really hard time with that sometimes.
Me saying something stupid?
Yeah, well, both, you and me. We have to help each other out, though. We have to police each other.
Yeah, but we usually don't. We throw the other one under the bus. The minute you smell blood in the water, you just said what? Let's say.
It was all I could do. We talked about bear baiting, and he's talking about watching these bears get old on trail cameras, and it was just. I was trying to really keep it serious, and it's all about game management, and I just had to sit over here, bite my tongue, and listen to it.
You did a good job. I can't believe you didn't cut loose on me.
Yeah, well, I saved it for now.
There you go. No, it was. This is just an episode of us BSing, talking about some common questions and getting off on rabbit trails. And man, I got to thank everybody that's listening, and especially those that have been. There's been people that have stuck with us here from the beginning, and man, my hat's off to you. This has been a pain in the neck sometimes, but a lot of times it's fun. And getting those messages, there's people that just say, "Hey, thanks for what you do. I enjoy it. It makes my drive shorter." And then we get a little more serious, people reaching out and saying, "Hey, gosh, just what was it last month? We got that." Message where the guy said, I stumbled onto the podcast, and 6 months later I'm selling all my compound stuff. That's a little bit extreme, and shooting a stick bow. So everything in between, it's really makes it worth it. Had a lot of great guests on. That's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it does. I mean, as much as we like to sit around and bitch about a couple whiny people, for 99% of the interactions that we have based off of this podcast is all positive stuff, and it really does make it fun. I haven't been doing this for very long. There's a lot of people who've been doing it a lot longer than me, but I really do take enjoyment out of at least trying to contribute something. I have pretty limited time, and yeah, I mean, I thanked you in the episode, and I want to thank you again now, because this gives me a platform where I can contribute to the community, because otherwise it would be very difficult for me to do it. So
no, it was you're selling yourself short. I mean, I've been doing it for a long time. I'm set in my ways. You're a new guy, and I haven't been doing it that long, and you got a totally different perspective. So. No, don't sell yourself short. I appreciate what you bring to the table.
Yeah, well, thanks. I mean, not to get all
we can't hug it out here. We're about 3,000 miles away, so don't try to hug me, bro. That's wicked awkward. You're like on Zoom. Come on, sit down. There's no hugging. Sit down.
I am firmly planted in my seat. For anybody who can't see this right now,
it's because of the shorts
made towards the camera.
It's because of the shorts.
No, but I really do think we play pretty well off of each other, and I think we speak to two different audiences a lot of times, and I think that's good to have healthy discussions from two varying viewpoints. I think it's a good thing. So
Yep. 100%, man.
Well, without further ado, you want to hop off?
Yeah, I want to say thanks to the sponsors. Some of these sponsors have been with us from day one. Really appreciate them, and some of them are newer, but they've been good to us and help getting the word out. Backwoods Grind Coffee Company, Selway Archery, the Footed Shaft, Kifaru International, and of course Black Widow Bows. You like the show, share it up. We appreciate you listening and sticking with us, even when we say dumb things and have episodes you don't like. You keep coming back, so thank you.
Yep. Thanks to everybody. Make sure to leave us a review on whatever platform you listen on. That helps us. That makes us pop up in people's recommended for you or whatever. So, yeah. No, just thanks for everything. Love getting all the positive messages, and keep on keeping on.
Right on. That's all we got. Enjoy the week.
Let's get out of here.
Roger out. Hey, what's going on, Aaron?
Not much, man. Just earning my fall.
So it begins.
I just talked to Jake. They're going full on Forrest Gump on us because he's running like crazy right now.
Oh yeah,
you're in him. He's wait. I just try to earn my fall so I can earn my whitetail fit when I get to November and get fat.
Well, I might be just hunting whitetails this fall, so I'm going to get super fat this summer.
This summer?
Yeah. What are you saying? I'm already fat or what? You dick.
Okay. I didn't mean to imply that. I thought, man, maybe I missed the summer because you made it.
You have arrived.
Well, hey, man, this is our 200th episode, and what better guy to have on than Aaron? Aaron has helped us from day one. Well, actually, it's about episode 5 or 8 or something. But man, I seriously appreciate all you've done for the podcast, and I think you bought into what we were trying to do from the beginning. So, yeah, thank you, man.
Yeah, no problem at all. I'm glad I can help.
So, bear hunting. I've been sending you guys some pictures, some explicit pictures that we won't share. But man, what a great year this has been. And I was telling Blake before we started, the bears that we've taken this year so far are the ones that you like to see to be taken because they're the age and stature where they're probably pretty hard on calves. So it feels really good to be helping out in that predator management and having a blast.
Yeah, you shot one and Kenny shot 2, right?
Yeah, Kenny, man. That guy that guy's a cool story. Grew up on the beaches of some part of California, he's a skateboarder, and him and his wife moved to North Idaho and kind of buy right into the culture up here, and to see a guy start from ground zero in the hunting world, and it's not been that long, and he's doing a great job. He's killed 2 great bears this year. The first one was an old, mature sow, dry sow. She was a dandy, and then last night, yeah, he killed a good mature boar. That thing was a pig. So no, it's been great. Those are the bears that need taken.
You got any pictures?
How many bears you got hitting that thing at one time?
Well, we're in a new spot. We're in a new spot down in the St. Joe. We set some baits up, and he sat 2.5 hours and had 5 bears on it. We had in one day we were going through trail cam pics on that particular bait, and we were convinced that we're solid 10 different bears in one day, and there might have been 12. We had 2 questionables. That is a pile of bears.
Yeah, that is crazy.
The other one is solid too. The other bait we had going is solid too. We were having 5 and 6 different bears a day on it. Couple of mature ones. That's the one that Frank's been on. Frank showed up early this year, which is out of the ordinary. But yeah, been a pretty productive year for sure.
So you do have Frank on a bait?
Well, he was there early, which is not typical. Usually he's there about mid-June, about this time. But he was there early, and then split. So usually he shows up mid-June and hangs out because breeding season. I think he's scoring on the sows coming in. But I haven't seen him in a while. So cameras, they were tough on cameras this year. Holy smokes! My cameras have been fine for 5-6 years, and I don't know. They figured it out or something.
They know how unethical that is. They're just trying to help you.
Yeah, and then I had that little chocolate sow. Did you guys see that story on Instagram? I had that little chocolate sow messing around below the stand. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, you climbed up in the tree too, didn't it?
Yeah, when it turns and it looks, man, the last thing I want is a bear in the tree with me. It's one thing, like you're tied. Can you imagine trying to get your safety harness unhitched, with a 125-pound raccoon looking you in the face? So I really don't want to be tied to a tree with a bear in it. It turns and starts to act like it's going to come up the tree. So I just said, get out of here. And it ran over and ran up another tree and was huffing at me and stuff. It was cool. It's cool.
It's funny you call it a 125-pound raccoon because my dad, we don't have bears actually far from where I'm at up in Oklahoma, probably, 100 miles or so. And we were all sitting around talking one night, and somebody said, yeah, it'd be super cool to have bears around here. And my dad said, F that. That's like having a 300-pound raccoon. We've got enough freaking problems with regular 25-pound raccoons. Imagine having a 300-pounder.
Aaron, you must be jonesing. You haven't got to do any bear hunting this year or last year, right?
Did you? No, I don't think no. I just turkey hunted last because I couldn't. All my hunts up in Canada got canceled, and then I was supposed to go out with you, and that got screwed up, and I'm having to adult this year a little bit, but I shot a bunch of bears, which is cool, but anymore it's fun to just go, right? I mean, whatever, but between having to be an adult and COVID, it's kind of starting to irritate me.
Yeah, it was springtime. It was probably only 10 years ago that I really got into bear hunting. But, man, it's a blast being out in the springtime. You start in April and the weather's crappy and stuff's just starting to come around. And by this time, it's hot and nasty. And, yeah, you get all the weather changes. You get to see everything come full circle.
Yeah, no kidding. What? How long have you been in that area? Has that been like a producer for you?
Well, we're talking two different areas. We're down in the St. Joe now, and man, it was on fire from day one. But I started at one bait here probably 8 years ago, maybe, and it was crazy good the first few years. It's kind of tapered off. I'm probably only still there because Frank's around, and I've watched him. It's been really cool watching him go from. I don't want anybody to think that I'm like some bear expert, but to me, he was kind of an up and coming juvenile. When I first seen him on pictures, on camera, because his legs were so long, and he had these really big feet. He just seemed like he had the stature, and over like the course of 3 or 4 years, he filled out. He's got a very distinct chest patch on him, and so to watch him mature to just become this just behemoth, and never actually lay eyes on him. I mean, he might have seen me, but I'm sure he smelled me multiple times because that dude, he's got it going on. But like I said, this year to take 3 good mature bears. It just feels good to help out predator management, and it's so important in country like that where you're not going to spot and stalk, but they make them 2 bear areas for a reason.
That's pretty wild to me that you could have 10 bears on one bait.
Oh, that's insane. Totally crazy.
I got to get up there soon.
Yes, next year, man.
Yeah, I need to kill one with a stick bow.
I'll tell you what. Let's talk about blood trailing a little bit. Kenny shot that sow. Yeah, Kenny shot that sow with a 120, and like we're going to talk about some products here, and they happen to be sponsors. We of course use the equipment, the sponsors' equipment. So this isn't just an infomercial. I'm telling you, like Kenny shot that sow, and she didn't go 25 yards and piled up. I mean, just piled up. 125 wide, and I shot that. I shot that boar a couple days later, and 40 to 50 yards, somewhere in there, at a dead run. So what's it take a bear to run 40 yards? Sub 3 seconds.
Not very long.
Yeah.
Yeah, not very long.
Sub 3 seconds, I would say. Between 2 and 3 seconds, and he is on a dead run. You can just see by his body laying there. I got a picture of it somewhere. He was on a dead run, just boom, piled up. And then once I got him, broke down, I cut into the chest cavity and pulled his heart out. I think I sent a picture to a couple of you guys. His heart looked like a blooming onion. Like one of those blades had sliced across his heart and just opened it up. It was phenomenal.
Well, I mean, you hate to sound like a walking sales pitch, and that's why I try to be careful about the stuff that I say, but it just, I've heart shot deer with, just standard whatever broadhead, and, still had them run 125, 150 yards. And I swear this is not, necessarily just iron will. There's other really good heads out there, but just heads that stay sharp mainly is what I'm talking about. Animals just die quicker.
Yeah,
they really do. They bleed out quicker. They die quicker. Half the time I notice, if you shoot a deer with a broadhead that doesn't stay very sharp, it's almost like they feel it more going through them, and they haul ass. And I've shot multiple animals with iron wills specifically, that had no idea that they were even shot, like hop 20 yards and were like, what the hell was that? And then just fall over dead. And I swear there's something to it. I don't have any Cody Greenwood scientific data to prove any of that, but I swear animals just die quicker when broadheads go or stay sharp all the way through them, and just causes more trauma. They don't feel it as much. They don't. I don't know, Aaron. What do you've shot 100 times more crap with them than I have?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to ever say anything about this, because the moment, like when it's put to the test, something will be different. But I mean, I guess the big thing as far as just blood trailing in general and everything else, like we're talking about. Like you just said, what's it take for a bear to, go 40 yards? Like one of the things that, when you brought up Cody, was, how fast does something bleed? And I said, dude, things usually don't bleed for 30, 40 yards, and he went out and measured it or whatever. I mean, there's no ever guarantees in blood trailing, but I mean, but what were you asking in general, Blake? Like what were you, when you said like no scientific data?
No, I was just saying in general, it just seems like, heads with better edge retention that stay sharper through the animal and are sharper from the get-go. It just seems like stuff dies quicker. Like they almost, like shooting them with a duller head. I've heart shot deer and had them run 125, 150 yards, just like they're shot out of a cannon. And then, ever since I've swapped to more premium heads, it just seems like stuff dies quicker. Maybe they don't run as hard because they don't know that they're hit. I don't know what it is, but it just seems like stuff dies quicker.
It does. It's also, things seem to not know that they're hit. If that makes sense. Like I've hit, even with an iron will wide, probably, I don't know, 30, 40 animals, and a lot of those, even Scotty and I talked about, like that last real big Outdad. I mean, it was pretty close, I think 8 or 9 yards, but it ran off like it didn't even know anything had happened, and then just stood there in the group and then fell over, rather than like a death run. It just kind of like, oh, what just happened, and then stopped and then flipped over dead. Where a lot of times it seems like with a duller broadhead or even a mechanical, they bolt and they don't ever, they don't ever stop.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like they know
that's
been hit.
That's kind of what I was getting at, is with the duller heads and mechanical included. Actually, the specific instance I was talking about, shooting a deer in the heart and having it still go 150 yards, was with a big mechanical. And that's kind of essentially the same thing I was saying, is it just seems like with a duller head, it's like they know they got hit, so they go on a freaking death run and don't slow down. Whereas with, a sharper fixed blade head that stays sharp, half the time they don't even know they've been shot, so they don't go very far.
Yeah. Well, I would agree. And I mean, you put a lot of arrows through, animals. It's amazing when you try to explain to someone about, blood trailing and penetration and, things like that when you shoot 2 or 3 animals or 4 or 5, over the course, especially when you're like Rob, you're geographically screwed, right? You can't shoot that many animals because of where you live. About the time you think you got things figured out, and then something majorly goes, wrong. But obviously, razor sharp broadheads that stay sharp are always going to be, the best thing that you can hope for. But I'm laughing at myself here. I shot a deer last year with an iron willer 2 years ago, just to kind of prove a point. Went through the shoulder and, like a dummy, reloaded it in my quiver and forgot to change it out. Shot a buck the next day with the same broadhead, and I hit bone and I broke the offside leg, and it doled up the broadhead. That deer ran 350 yards. I ranged it from the tree stand before it flipped over, and the other buck I hit, exact same spot, basically ran 75 yards and died. Can you quantify that? Can you Cody Greenwood the hell out of it? I don't know, but that thing ran so far. I'm like, did I miss? Because it just ran and ran and ran. And so, and that broadhead was pretty dull, I mean, it blew the leg in half on the offside. So I'm rambling on here, but anytime you start talking about blood trailing, for me, it's like there's like a few like definites that you don't want to get away from, meaning make sure you mark where you were standing, make sure you mark where the animal was standing, make sure your broadhead sharp, all that stuff. But people still screw it up. Rob, you seem to be one of those guys that's geeked up about blood trailing. What would you say some of the bigger issues you found with people blood trailing? Like the one guy walking ahead, not following blood, screwing up the blood trail.
Yeah.
Like that guy.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough being the shooter is so emotionally invested in it. Number one, and I'm not pointing the fingers at anybody because I'm as bad as anybody, but it's so common for the shooter, especially like real brushy stuff, to be totally mistaken on the direction of travel. So many times I'll get to a spot and like, okay, where'd he go? And like, well, he went this direction. And there's nothing and nothing and nothing. And you go, 20 degrees or 25 degrees to the left or the right, and like, oh, okay, I got the trail, and it's exactly not what the shooter saw, and it's no fault. It's just the adrenaline. So like keying in on just like making sure you pick the spot to where that critter takes off, so you can get a fresh start, and then like you said, not having somebody get in front of you, just walking around aimlessly. Is another huge one.
Let's rewind real quick, because this is extremely important, especially for the first time blood trailer tracker guy, because it's generally you forget your rangefinder and you lose a bunch of crap. People lose their mind right when they hit an animal. It just happens, right? Yeah. Everybody does it again. There's the man, I smoked it, and then you get up to it 7 hours and 4 miles later, and it was in the stomach, right? I mean, people remember what they want to on the hit, and they remember where it ran. I immediately, when I shoot, I try to remember exactly where the animal is standing and go look for the kicked up dirt. If my arrow's there, I'll stab it in the ground or I'll put orange ribbon. I do the same thing where I was standing, mostly like where I was standing and where the animal kicked up dirt, so I can find the arrow if it passed through it. And then it gives you some time to screw around and not go right after the animal if you have no patience, too. You can screw around there for a little bit. And then, if you're in an aspen grove or you're in something where you can watch it, and if it passes by something, it's good to make mental notes of that, of, okay, there's one pine tree. It was just to the right of that when it was running down. Any info you can get is very, very important, because when you get a bad hit or you're in thick cover like you are, man, it can be hard to find them. And I don't think people realize how hard until I don't know how many times I've been on my hands and knees looking for a speck of blood to find an animal later. It happens. It's just, you got to pay attention.
Yeah, it took me 2 weeks to find mine this year and 4 trips. And I walked within 50 yards of that deer, 2 or 3 times. Still took me 2 weeks to find him.
Another one, as we're talking, I've had several people get in stands here and specifically talking about how, thick it is. You get into a stand you're not familiar with and you get on the ground, it looks totally different, right? So it wouldn't be a bad idea to whip your cell phone out when you're waiting and take a picture, because I saw it specifically a couple of years ago. A guy gets down and he's like, well, I think it was over here. And finally I'm like, get back in your tree stand and tell me where the bear was at, or, where you last saw the bear. Another one, and I can't stress enough, like, you're on a tough blood trail, putting up flagging at last blood, and if you can get 3 flags and then turn around and you start to see a direction of travel, that helps immensely, instead of just wandering around looking for your next blood. You're like, well, here, this might be a route that animal's going to take. It's going for cover. This might be the route. That is just huge to me, because, yeah, you see it and you go like, oh, there's blood, and you go to the next one, oh, there's blood. Well, yeah, but if you take a time to put 2 or 3 ribbons up and start to see a direction of travel, that can be a huge benefit.
Well, and I try not to litter the entire forest with ribbon, which I see some people do, but I 100% do exactly what you're talking about. I have the last 40 yards, last 50 yards for that direction of travel marked. And a lot of times we'll just wrap it around the tree. When it's good blood, I don't pay.
Sure.
I'm just following blood. When it gets to the nitty gritty, I mark them to move them. You know what I mean? Because you're going slow already. It helps you slow down, have somebody go back, grab the ribbon, re-ribbon on the new blood, the new direction of travel. You guys, I hate to say it, you got to screw it up to get good at it.
Yeah.
But some people are naturally better at it. Like, if I was more of a poor shooter in the beginning of my compound days, I'd probably been a better tracker, but I got pretty lucky, and most everything died within sight. And then I got on my first blood trail, and thank God I had a guy like one of you two with me, and literally was looking at me like, are you stupid? And I'm like, what? They're like, how do you not know how to blood trail? And, we're talking this a couple of days ago, and I'm like, I don't know. Everything I shoot died. And they were like, will you stop walking in front of me? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, you're effing up the blood trail, dude. I'm like, oh, my bad. And literally my buddy grabbed me. He's like, if you cross me again, you may be able to kick my ass. I'm going to stab you. Do not walk in front of me. Well, that's back in my early 20s, right? And then you hunt with a partner that can't shoot very well, you magically become a really good blood trailer. And there's a lot of things like what Rob's talking about, marking. One of the things I used to do, and I still will on a backcountry hunt, if it's getting late, we got to get to camp, I'll take a chem light and I'll put my arrow vertical where it went through, and I'll tape that chem light or tie it to my arrow. And so, I've got good, the next morning, if we're heading out early to get there, or, if we get that night when we go back in, if you shot it early enough, but you got to sit on it. But you're going to try to go back in late for some reason or another. You got to get back to work or whatever. That chem light's a big help to get in there and try and find it,
Well, anymore, I've got a buddy, and actually, I'm going to get him on the podcast before deer season starts up, just because he's got a lot of knowledge. But he's got a phenomenal dog, and anymore, if there's any, and last year he was busy and couldn't come out. We just couldn't connect to find mine because he would have found that deer in 5 minutes. But anymore, if there's any doubt in my mind at all, or I'm having any kind of trouble finding the next drop of blood, I'm just going to back out and just call him. I mean, it's worth the 2-hour wait and the couple $100 or whatever to just have that dog come out. You haven't screwed anything up. You haven't tromped back and forth all over the blood trail. And typically that dog's going to find it in 20, 30 minutes.
Before you get in trouble, Blake, where it is legal, because it is not legal here.
Where it's legal, yes, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
Be out there
for
Blake,
people,
Colorado. Blake said it was fine.
No, for people who live in areas where it's legal, that's just my 2 cents from seeing a good dog work and stumbling around in the woods for 3 or 4 hours looking for the next drop of blood or whatever. Last year, I'm 100% certain that if me and him would have been able to connect and he could have come out, that dog would have found that deer in literally 5 minutes. And so anymore, if I have any questions, instead of just stomping all over the blood trail, making it harder for a dog, I'll just call him and have him come out there and get the damn thing. But yeah.
You know, Aaron, the last Empty Quiver episode we did, you had mentioned how rough it was blood trailing, and you kind of pitched it to me, blood trailing in northern Idaho because it's brushy. And I just kind of had a brain fart, but I enjoy blood trailing in thick brush because there's so much more room for evidence.
They wipe on stuff.
Yeah. I kind of wished I had jumped in on that. I just had a brain fart. But one thing that new hunters might pick up is, like, there might not look like there's any sign right there, but if you start turning those leaves over and those branches and lifting those branches up in that brushy stuff, all of a sudden you're going to see where, like as in a bear's, in the case of a bear, where he might not be dripping the blood, when he's running through that brush, it's coming off. And as you look down through his direction of travel, you might not see it until you push that brush back. And a lot of times it's like, holy smokes, look at all that blood.
Well, the worst thing in the world to blood trail in is about 12-inch tall grass.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like, Rob, you bringing that up, and, you know, like I said, you go on enough different hunts and, you know, like things that should go on a T-shirt. And my buddy turned around because he was flipping leaves over in front of me, and he looks back as I was doing the track in, and he was, you know, I get my binos out and look ahead. If you're the blood trailer, because we always have a primary point man who's the guy that sees red the best and the most anal retentive. And then I'm usually the guy in the back looking for sign because I'm a better tracker than trailer. And I'll grab binos and pick things out ahead of me so I'm not screwing up the blood trail, which I've had some people say that's genius and other people say that's stupid, but it works for me. But my one buddy looked back at me, you know, sweaty, big chew in, hands and knees. He's like, you know, the blood trails went south when I'm flipping over leaves. And he said exactly what you did was, you know, things are great if you're not flipping over leaves. When you're flipping over leaves or bark and you're looking on the backside of logs and just praying for a speck, that's not to say you're not going to find the animal. You're just going to have to work a lot harder at it to find it. And the other thing too, like you said, leaves, anytime when you're talking about direction of travel, any kind of a willow that's got green leaves on it, anything that animal can rub against. I mean, again, you're looking for anything you possibly can to give you sign. Cause anybody listening in that's blood trailed enough, I'm sure is laughing at this and having fond, well, maybe memories and flashbacks, whatever you want to call them, where you get to that one spot in the blood trail where you just had good blood and it could have went one of three ways and you're stymied. Like, it should have gone down, and then the little mother effer went up, and you're putting all your concentration where it should have went and it didn't, where if maybe you would have spent a little bit more time on that last blood flipping over leaves and everything else, you would have known its direction of travel a little bit, better. So there's a lot of things you can do to help out.
You know, when you mention when you get stumped, right? So I'll have a direction of travel, kind of get stymied, rather than walk ahead, I'll do like a 5 or 6 yard circle. So like I'm looking for, you mentioned logs, logs or sometimes I want to say rocks, but like you see a gray log and it might be 30, 40 feet long. I'll swing out 10, 15 yards. Yeah. Instead of walking where that critter may have walked, I'll swing out, get on that log, and then walk that log back, because that gray log it shows up so good. And then you might be able to leap ahead 15 yards where you couldn't go anywhere 5 minutes ago.
Well, a lot of times when they're jumping over stuff like that, they'll drop blood too on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Well, and as we're talking about all of this, one, keep in mind that none of us popped out knowing what we were doing. It's a lot of mistakes. So if I make a couple of smart aleck comments, believe me, it's because I've screwed up myself. But once you finally, after the blood trail's done, right, skipping ahead, and you finally find the animal, and I did a video on this a while ago. I called it the "Don't Lose Your Crap Rock." Remember in the Army, Rob, the dummy. Yeah. I am very anal with whether it's a Tyvek sheet, a rock, a log. I make sure and put all high-value items, all essentials on that rock, on that Tyvek, because you just lose your mind, if it's a first animal. I mean, I've seen guys literally bear charging, reload 3 rounds, and never hit the trigger once, just jacking out live rounds. Like, your brain just doesn't work right when this stuff goes on, and your intensity's there, and then all of a sudden you're pulling crap out of your pack, your car keys, which I've been on that when my buddy lost them. He forgot he took them out of his pack. So we get to the truck. Wonderful 3-mile hike out. No keys. They were at the park. And, people are like, oh, dummy. Well, I've seen people do some dumb shit. And so when your adrenaline's running, take a deep breath, put a chew in, rub one out, do whatever you got to do to calm down. Make sure you keep your gear, all piled up in the right pile, and the 5-point contingency plan, right? Like, what's happening if someone's going back to camp, let's say it was us 3. And this is important. I'm like, hey, guys, I can get your gear. You get the animal out. Okay. Well, oh, hey, Aaron, by the way, I hung food, and my wallet is in the food bag 20 yards from camp. I may not look at it. I may get there at dark. All of those things need to be talked about. Now, if you don't talk about it, it just makes for a better story later. And when you're drinking in a couple months, you can talk about how miserable it was because you forgot the car keys and had to go back in and get them. But I personally am getting too old for that shit. And I'm very anal with those plans and talking about, what's what and who's who, from the blood trail all the way down to packing the animal out. Rob or Blake, have you guys experienced anything overly stupid like that, or guys leaving range finders, or the car key issue?
Man, I've left all kinds of stuff. I mean, I can't pinpoint one because it's happened many times where my dad is, whenever I was a younger kid, like, son, pull your head out of your ass, would you? Yeah, I mean, it happens. I've gotten better about it over the years, but I mean, I still get just as excited as the next guy, when I shoot something. I have gotten better about like paying attention which direction the animal goes and things like that. But, especially, 10 years ago, I mean, I blacked out, just didn't remember anything. You talking earlier about, Rob, you were saying, the deer went this way or the bear went this way. And my dad come up there with me, and matter of fact, this deer right here behind me. And I said, yeah, he went this way. And I'm over there looking and looking and looking, spent like an hour looking. My dad, after we spent like an hour looking in the direction that I thought he went, walked like 10 yards the other direction, and there's a spot of blood like the size of a softball. The deer ran like 50 yards, fell over. Yeah. It's like, oh. So
yeah. It's
happens to me still.
It's tough. It's tough when you're emotionally invested.
Shot one of my bigger bulls is he could have won.
Hey, Aaron.
Yeah,
you're all jacked up. Your connection's all jacked up.
Maybe because we're doing this over Zoom.
Hold on.
Oh, he's gone. Just like that, he's out of our lives. Let's talk about him. Let's talk about him. He just asked any of that stuff happened before. One story that jumps out at me that kind of grinds on me still to this day. It was when I was guiding brown bears up in Alaska, and it seemed like we killed a bear, and I was the last one. So we used four-wheelers to get our jump out spot or UTVs, and the other group had taken off. We had killed a bear, and I was the last one to leave. And I go and get in this UTV, and there's no keys in it. And I'm like, where are the keys? What did I do with the keys? And I'm searching all over. I got no keys. And I'm like, this is bizarre. It's getting dark, probably 8 miles from camp. And finally, I got to get on the freaking radio and radio for somebody to come get me because I've got nothing. Oh, yeah, one of the dudes thought it'd be funny if he took my keys and hid them in my coffee cup. And for some reason, he looked at me like, well, why didn't you look in your coffee cup? Like, why in the F would I look in my coffee cup for the keys? It's to this day.
And that's the first thing that I, whoever I'm hunting with, it's usually Cameron or whoever it is the first thing I discuss is where I'm hiding my keys at.
Well, I didn't hide them. I left them in the ignition. And he takes them out of the ignition and puts them in my coffee cup and then looks at me like I'm the dummy that didn't look in my coffee cup. I'm thinking, dude,
man.
Like this place is full of, like really big, hairy, toothy things. I probably wouldn't have effed with you and moved the keys at all. Why did you think that was a good idea? You're back, Aaron.
I'm back. Is that any better?
It is.
Oh yeah, way better.
I don't know what happened. Where did I leave off on that bull? Because that's kind of a good story for people to think about.
Should you start
over at the front? Yeah.
But anyway, I hit a bull, and I hit one lung, and thought I might have caught two on the first one, and it actually ran like 50, 70 yards and bedded down. I kind of low crawled up and was assessing what I should do, and I'm like, man, I'm just going to put another arrow in it, and it bedded in taller grass. And when I took the second shot, I actually hit the same lung again, got more penetration. So I knew I had at least one lung, probably liver, and definitely stomach. And so, I try not to, it's hard for me to be patient, and not push the issue, which can bite you when you do that. So we waited a while. I waited a while, and I found, fairly quickly a bed that I either pushed it out of, but it looks like the cows had got back with it with what I call the one lung bed, right? The coagulated blood in the bed and no animal. But I knew it was going to die. I just, how long, and I didn't want to push it. It was getting dark. So I got out. We went and looked the next morning. We were on blood for quite a while, and then we just lost it, right? We just lost blood, couldn't find it. And, and it was, we had to go back. We hiked back out and got some more water. And I actually put my bow up and went like super lightweight, mobile, which is just a judgment call. I'm like, man, there's no way this thing's still alive after this amount of time. I'm not worried about the bow. You know how it is, blood trailing with too much crap on you. So when we got that last blood, I actually did the box method. If you can believe this, to grid. I was so paranoid that, and it was a 350 plus inch bull. And I took the direction of travel and did 90 degrees off the compass. We went 150 yards one way, 150 yards the other, 90 degreed it, made this giant box on my GPS, and just figured it had to be in there, right? I mean, it could have not been, but I'm like, man, we're just going to have to do this. And 30 minutes later, I hear Jeremy yell, dude, I found blood. And it was on the front of a log in the direction of his travel. And I got over there, and I'm like, Jeremy, look at the back of the log. And the back of the log was covered. The front of the log had a speck. But I think what happened is when he went over it, he probably was sick and stood there for a minute. And the back of his front legs were just right there on that log because there was two big lines. And so I'm like, dude, it's got to be here. And then, 10 minutes later, we found it. And when you get to that point, especially if there's some really aggressive terrain and it's a liver or gut hit animal that it may not go up and it hasn't been pushed, that box method and grid method can work very, very well. And when I'm saying that, meaning having a plan, not wandering aimlessly when you're gridding. A lot of people say, I'm going to start gridding, and then they just kind of wander aimlessly. That's not really gridding. That's wandering aimlessly, where you actually are following a direction of travel and a distance and boxing everything off. And sometimes you have to do that. And then on that elk we did, and we found it, and it was a 357 bull. It's one of the larger bulls I've shot. And if we wouldn't have done that grid, I don't think we would have ever found it, or at least not while the meat was still good, and we got all the meat off of it. So.
That's something I had written down there. Just wanted to touch on. At what point do you pull off a trail and just go, you know what, we're going to have to wait?
Man, that's a tough one, because I don't know. You can answer that, Aaron.
I'm going to give my 2 cents when as far as when I have not enough info, that makes me sway to the pull out early. You never want to pull out early, but sometimes you got to. And so if I have enough info, guy's not sure where he hit it. There's not a blood trail that's giving me a distinct color of blood. If it's not coming out both sides, thoracic cavity being pierced, things like that, I might opt to back out for not overnight if it's semi positive what I'm seeing, but I might back out for a couple hours. A good example, I'm not going to bring up any names, but you guys were down there in the Davis, and you guys know the terrain. One of the clients hit one of the most devastating, not in the lungs, but one of those devastating wound channels I've ever seen. I could see blood from 400 yards off through my binos, and it was turning cactuses red. And it's a prime example. One of the cameramen got ahead of us that was filming it, winded it. And that mountain in front of camp?
Mm-hmm.
It ran up that after 4 hours and losing more blood than I thought was humanly possible and have something to live. And it ran up that with some major, major issues. And those are the times where you really look back and think, man, I've been lucky pushing the issue, right? Because when those animals, adrenaline hits them, they can go through a lot. And that's when I'm like, I don't have enough info. That's when I'll back out, because one bump, they're already alerted. You know what I mean? They're already on alert.
Yeah,
I'll back out. That's the big thing for me.
Yeah, on my Audad trip, I had it bite me, and I wish Scotty was on here to tell the story. But my sheep was laying in its bed, and its head was dipping, and its eyes were closing and swaying back and forth, and laying there, and just looked like it was about to kill over any second. And we sat there and watched it for a little bit, and finally, Scotty and I talked, and it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna sneak down there and put another arrow in it. Like this thing's not gonna get up and go very far. It's hurting bad. And anyway, I snuck down there and got to 35 yards and got to where I was fixing to stand it up and shoot it. And it stood up and ran about 350 yards across a canyon and went up a straight vertical cliff face, and another 350 yards over the other side and back down another vertical cliff face. So I don't know. It's so hard to say. And, with deer around here, especially like last year in early October, it's pretty warm. I wasn't 100% sure where I hit my buck. So I didn't want to feel good about backing out overnight, but I at least waited until, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and went back in to try and find it. I don't like leaving them lay overnight if I don't have to. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents. It's just a case by case basis, I guess. And it still bites you in the ass one way or another sometimes.
When we're talking about this, and here's the moral dilemma that I've seen, guys, that you got to talk to people and assess. I don't want to just leave it there wounded, and I totally get that. But the alternative is leaving it there wounded a little longer and getting it, maybe with a secondary shot. But the other alternative is you scare the hell out of it, it runs forever, and coyotes eat it. So you got to weigh out. The other thing is, too, with the stick bow guy, even someone that can shoot far, or far for a stick bow, you don't have that option of getting to 80 or 60 or 80 with the compound and maybe not getting that red zone. Where to get a secondary arrow with the stick bow, you got to get a little closer, which makes things a little hairier. So, things to think about. And I'm not saying there's a right or wrong. I'm more aggressive by far than I should be, and it's paid off for me. But I've also seen it not pay off for guys. So, while we're talking about, go ahead.
I would add, and this is a fault of mine, is go with your gut instinct. Like, you want to find that animal, right? Like, everybody's like, it's got to be right here. And you push the issue when you shouldn't. You know deep down inside, hey, this isn't good. I got to pull back. But, you just want to keep going. So, like, trusting your gut instinct is something I try to do. Just be, be realistic. Dude, you've gone 200 yards, and it's not looking good. You need to stop. And
100%.
Yeah.
Well, and let's talk about going with your gut, because there's your gut. It's kind of like the little head and the big head. And sometimes you're convincing it's the big head actually telling you what to do, but it's the little head. Same thing with blood trailing. There's your gut, the excitement of finding the animal.
Snyder analogies.
The big head or the bigger head?
Yeah.
That's what I like to call it. I don't know about you guys, but whatever.
Well, the excitement of finding the animal is usually not your gut. That's what you want to have happen. Your gut's the little devil on the left shoulder saying, go, you'll find it. And the right one saying, calm down, buddy. Wait. Assess the situation. Don't do anything stupid. And then the guy on the left shoulder saying, go. Yeah, you got to listen to that right shoulder sometimes. And I've been at fault for not listening to the guy on the right shoulder at times, and I've gotten lucky. But last thing you want to do is leave one out there, can't find it. So
yeah,
I don't know. I guess I've been bit one too many times, and especially around here in the type of cover I'm hunting in. If there's any doubt at all in my mind, I just back out anymore. I've just gotten bit too many times. When you can't see very far ahead of you, that's what makes me nervous. That's when I start getting a little bit of anxiety is when I can't see what's up ahead of me. There's no glassing for a deer in its bed or anything like that. So anytime it's like that, I just, I'll usually back out and wait a couple hours and then go back in, just make me feel a little bit better.
Well, you will have anxiety next year up in northern Idaho, because you will not be glassing. There'll be no glassing.
Yeah, it just makes me nervous being on a blood trail that I'm not 100% sure of where I hit, and I can't see anything, and I'm not finding a whole lot of blood. But
yeah,
I don't know. That's just me.
Well, I think we beat this horse. You got anything to add, Aaron?
No, not to this. I was gonna, whatever kind of.
Yeah, you had some
branch off
things you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, well, like we talked about the blood trailing. One of the things, and we've talked about this before, but quickly with meat care, once you find the animal, unless you're in Arizona, it's in 100 degrees, but most mountain areas, you want to make sure when you pull, if you're deboning, especially when you pull the animal off or the meat off the bone, you can't just pull it and throw it straight into the bag and expect the meat in the middle to cool itself down. You got to make sure and rotate the meat around. Meaning if you're hanging it, let the cool air hit the outer meat, give it an hour, give it 45 minutes, go rotate and get the meat that's in the middle to the outside, so that gets cooled, so all of it gets cooled down. Once all of it's cooled down, a lot of times I will drop it in a creek in a dry stack. But even dropping it in a creek, if you haven't cooled down all the meat can still potentially go bad. So you got to make, sure of that, get it all cooled down. If I'm in a good, like that last buck I killed in the high country, I was in a pretty good little corridor with high wind. The bugs were out of there. And honestly, I wasn't looking forward to climbing the, 1,800 foot cliff in front of me to get back to my craft. I laid all my meat out on a log and I, one piece by one piece, as I cut it up. And, it's like Admiration Day anyway. So I'm sitting there. I finally got a deer. and I let it literally all cool to the hand, loaded up in my pack, off I went, and I didn't have to worry about rotating that meat later if bugs aren't bad and you have that situation. So just make sure, and do that, or you can lose some meat. The drop it in the creek thing, I've had great luck with that. I really, please don't email me and tell me it's bad to put meat in contractor bags. I've been doing it my entire life. You don't want to put it in an apple glad bag, for God's sake, but an unscented bag doesn't hurt anything. I've had to do it where I just put the meat in there, but put the game bags in that, tie it off, submerge it. That'll keep that meat cool for quite some time. Snowbank's the same thing. And we'll keep that, 4 or 5 days is easy to push it. If it's in a real cool creek or a snowbank, you can extend the hunt a little bit if you need to do that. Frank and I, on multiple occasions, 5-6 days, it actually ages the meat. It tastes a little bit better if it's staying cool. So not the end of the world. So don't panic if you need to do that. Same thing if you got a long trek out. Nothing wrong with leaving part of the meat, going out to the truck, even if you got to stay overnight in town and come back in. As long as it's cool, you're good. You just want to make sure where you're putting the meat and that it's all cool. The other thing too, think outside the box. If there's bears or marmots or things like that in the area that are getting to the meat, hang your meat in a crevasse or off a cliff that's not facing into the sun. If you need to keep it away from bears don't climb cliffs. So if you can, and a lot of times we put logs in crevasses and then lowered the meat down so nothing can get to it. So think outside of the box, sometimes if you need to, as far as meat care. You got anything to add to that?
You mentioned marmots and stuff. We thought we were killing it one year. There was a snowbank just outside of camp, or right in camp, really. And we killed a bear and had him all butchered up, cooled off, and we got some logs and set him on some logs so he wasn't in the snow. And we left it there, and we just thought, that's the greatest thing ever. Well, 2 days later, we go to get the meat, and what happened is mice had found it, and I'm assuming they were mice, and we're nibbling on it. It didn't destroy a bunch of stuff, but it was like, dang, I wish we had thought to look at this and see what was going on. But
yeah, just be cognizant. I'd say that's the biggest thing is just be aware of what's going on, where you're putting your meat. Don't put it in a bad spot. You don't want to get the gift that keeps on giving. Out of the sun, off the ground, all that stuff is important. You're pretty safe if you bury it in the snow, or submerge it in the creek. Bears can still get in it, but I've had really good luck with that, with bears getting into it. The next thing that and these are all questions I've been getting, that, how much meat can you pack out at one time? And keeping the big penis syndrome out of it, I would say that for an average guy, 60 to 80 pounds is about as high as you want to go with very adverse terrain. 80 is easy downhill or easy for a lot of people, and I can do 200 downhill. But when you add a lot of uphills and things like that, you don't want to blow yourself out. You want to kind of assess how many miles you've got to go out, come back in, figure it out, how many trips, what you can handle, all of that. Make a plan, figure out what you can take. Like, if it's me and Frank and we kill an elk and it's all downhill, we'll do it in one trip. If it's really adverse terrain, we might do a little leapfrogging, especially if we're going to another campsite where we're going to start piggybacking it out, but then stay in a new campsite closer to the road, all that kind of stuff. So again, just stop. Don't be over manly. Think about what you're getting into. Look at the terrain you got, and figure out what you can handle. I mean, you two, what can you guys handle on a pack out in adverse terrain or bad terrain?
I did spend several years ago, but we did a bull, a 5-point bull. So I don't know, maybe. It was a decent sized bull. Anyways, we did it in one trip, and we weighed him. I think they were 112, 113, somewhere in there. But it was downhill, and I'll tell you, I felt like my knees were going to come out the sides. It does vary so much on the terrain. Have you ever shuttled loads? We did that one time where you didn't have the weight on for hours and hours. We took we each had 3 loads. There was 2 of us. We had killed two bulls, and we went a mile, drop it, and then go back, get the next piece, bring it up a mile, drop it, and we just kept leapfrogging like that. Have you ever done that? That gives your body a little time to rest.
That's what I should have said. Leapfrog. I called it piggyback. Leapfrog, same thing, and I think that is very, very a very good method to do, especially when you're going to stay a second night on the way out, meaning you've got 6 miles to go, and 3 miles, half the distance, is a great camp spot. You've got water. Piggyback it or leapfrog it to that 3-mile spot, camp there that night, and leapfrog it out the rest of the way the next day. Things like that, again, just kind of assess and figure out, what's going to be the best route. And sometimes I would much rather do 60 to 80 pounds 3 times than I would, 20 to 150 one time. It just depends, especially when you're dealing with deadfall. Deadfall changes the game.
Oh, yeah, especially when you're my size. You get high-centered a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well, what, he's 6'10". He was stepping over crap that I was crawling under. He was just crushing me. Cannot making it through. Like, you've got a 37-inch inseam, bro. Like, Jesus.
I don't think people appreciate when you slide a boned-in quarter, hind quarter especially, of elk. When you slide one of those things into your pack, and I don't care, if it's a raghorn or it's a mature bull. Well, there is a big difference. I'll just stop right there. There's a big difference. But man, you get 60 to 70 pounds of Jello in your pack. That sucks, man. That royally sucks. And to take the time to get it strapped down to where it ain't gonna move, it ain't gonna wiggle. Yeah.
Yeah, boned in meat might be heavier, but it's certainly a little bit less awkward sometimes. Seems like to me anyway. Y'all pack out more animals in a year than I have in my life. But
well, I think that one of the reasons we made the smaller cylindrical game bags was to kind of simulate bone in, so it's not lumpy. Because I hate really large game bags that kind of lump into the bottom. So I try to do, again, simulating the full meal deal, like you got bone in. The other thing too, you want it off the bottom. You don't want it all at the bottom. You want it in the middle of your back as much as you can. The weight coming out. And again, it's kind of like, I am not a horseman or whatever you call it, but you talk to packers, it's like you don't tie it up right the first time, you're going to retie it anyway.
Yeah.
You thing yourself by strapping the crap out of that load as tight as you can. A lot of misery and a lot of stopping along the way if you do it right.
Well, we said in the beginning we're going to talk about some of the sponsors, and this isn't because you're on here, but literally, Kenny's been with me on a few packouts now. I don't know how you guys test stitching, but I'm telling you what, I am laying into those buckles and that stitching. Starting in 2019 when I packed that, when I killed that good bull. Kenny's like, dude, what are you trying to do? Break that? I'm like, dude, I don't want this thing moving. And last night, same thing. We were 400 yards off the top, and it was super steep and nasty. And that was a big bear and 2 hind quarters in there. I don't know. It was a lot of freaking weight. And man, I'm laying into those buckles on that striker. And he's like, dude, what are you doing? Trying to break it? I'm like, man, I don't want this moving. So how do you guys test that stitching? What's the parameters?
So as much crap as I got packing the 300-plus pound Outdad out, that's how we test it. We test to failure. So failure is 450 pounds. That's what we test to. And if something fails early, we will change the stitch per inch count. We'll beef up the stitching. We'll double stitch it. We'll box stitch it. That's why, for example, the straight jacket we just came out with, which is a modified kind of nomad, somebody messaged me, said, I thought you were working on shelters. Why'd you come out with a new pack? I'm like, yeah, we've been working on that 2 years, man.
Wow.
We don't come out in a week, right? We Well, the Argali and the Nargali, and the Doll, I have videos of that last elk season. We test them that long. Not to say we're perfect, but we do test things for a long, long time. And so, that's how it is. So like when I have a chance, like when, we were only 300 or 400 yards from the truck, we do have people strap things on the pack very incorrectly. And so having a floppy 300 plus pound sheep is a very good way to test the dumbest load possible. And so while I'm still semi young and can do it, I'm the test dummy. So
you're killing it. You're killing the dummy part. So when you say 450 pound failure, is that like, so you're saying you're going to have to pull the whole pack is 450 pounds failure, or when you're pulling on some of those straps, like on the striker pack I'm talking about specifically, I'm laying into that stuff. I mean, freaking laying into it.
We test all of a minimum of 500 pounds per tab loop is what we test to. If it's done right. Not to say, we get ones we screw up on, but when it's done right. And when I say to failure, so like shoulder straps, we have a modified dip bar that we hang to simulate shoulders, and we drop 45-pound plates in it, until we hit 600 pounds. Once we've hit 600, we've hit the go state, and then we keep loading it in until we test for failure. And so one of the reasons we changed like how it was sewn onto the belt, it was bar tacked in two places, in a 3/4 inch space. Now it's 4 full inches, 4 bar tacks, and a box stitch. And so it can't really ever fail. It can tear one of them off, but you'll never be left hanging. And as you can imagine, that's just for me getting stranded, testing stuff. And I get back and I'm like, you're going to have to edit this out. I'm like, all right, I had to rig it. I'm pissed, fix it. And I am like, whatever it takes. Because when you're the guy that's out there testing it and then have to hold onto a shoulder strap because it ripped off, that'll definitely, help you make something more durable.
Well, I guess I won't be concerned, and I'll keep laying into them. Somebody else pointed out the other day, because I posted a couple of pictures of that striker pack loaded, and somebody else mentioned the buckles. I honestly wasn't even in my thought process. I was just looking at that stitching. when I was jamming it in there, and yeah, good to know.
Yeah. So on that note, while we're talking about, when you're loading up the pack, it is very, very important that you do not just load everything in the bottom. You want it the heaviest weight in the middle third, and you do want strapped down as tight as you possibly can be. When you go to stand up, you want to make sure that there's not like an extremely loose load lifter or shoulder strap, because it's going to cause sway and an insane amount of pressure and tension. So, all of those things are important as far as just longevity of the pack and not having anything go wrong. And yeah, we obviously test them to try to break them, but we are constantly amazed by, we had one special individual that we've actually blocked from purchasing from Kifaru that, 96 pound day pack is what he said. And I was like, man, I've guided and hunted all over the world. I don't know why anybody would have a 96 pound day pack. Good on you. I have no idea why you're doing that. And it was, one of the issues he was having was kind of a user error. And I'm like, man, I can't build and design around one person doing something I'm telling you shouldn't be doing. And so, there's parameters obviously, but we do, try to prepare for the most odd load that somebody loads into the pack for it to break. But anyway, so enough about that as far as packing out the animals. Some of the other questions I've gotten asked, unless you guys have anything else to add to that.
Nope, you answered my question.
Not really in my wheelhouse.
As far as the bow goes and getting ready when you're heading into the field, as far as what to bring and on a repair kit, what knots to learn to tie, and what do I do to my bow to make sure it, quote unquote, stays on. One of the things for me, I'm pretty anal on my brace height staying the same. So
what I do, rather than carrying a bow square, every arrow I have in my quiver, I put my nock against the throat of my grip. And, coming back, I take a Sharpie mark and I Sharpie every arrow at my brace height. That way, that's what I have to check my brace height. There's multiple ways to do this, but if I'm out of arrows, it doesn't matter what my brace height is anyway. So I mark them all, and that's what I check my brace height with. So I've always got arrows, and I can check it quick because your tune can get thrown off from that. I bring a backup string, pre-stretched, ready to go, shot in. Knock points are exactly where they need to be. Silencers in the exact same spot as the what I have on my current string. I bring like 3 or 4 feet of power grip serving material in case something goes wrong. All of those things, they don't weigh very much. I always bring a couple judo tips and a couple field points in case I got to do some field sighting in to confirm, the bow's on. I don't pack backup limbs into the field. If I'm going like on this mountain goat and I hunt in Alaska, I definitely have a set of backup limbs at base camp. If I have a set of backup limbs in the truck, listen to this as I tell you this. It's very important. Don't be a dumb shit and leave them in the truck with the windows up. If you're going to do it, put them in a cooler. Make sure that cooler is cool, even if you put a little ice in there and elevate your limbs. They're not laying in ice, so your limbs do not delaminate or get too hot. That cooler keeps those limbs cool. If you've got a big cooler, you can put an entire compound bow in that cooler so it's not delaminating the limbs. That's extremely important. People ask about sharpeners. I have the little thumb sharpener that you can touch up the blades with. I don't pack a whole crazy assembly of sharpening stuff. Benchmade has one. Iron Will has one. It literally, you can just touch up broadheads with it. Even if it's just from going in and out of your foam, doesn't hurt to touch them up. All of those things are important, and you want to stay very lightweight. So I have a really Spartan but very effective bow repair kit. Super glue is another one. I'll bring super glue. Learn how to serve. Have the serving needed if you have to reserve your center serving. That's all the things I have. Learn to tie a nail knot, learn to back serve. We've got videos on all this just in case you're in the middle of nowhere. You don't want to go home from ignorance. Just have the stuff to fix it. So,
yeah, not much to add to that. That's pretty much the exact same thing that I keep. I keep a few extra knocks, a few judo tips, a few field points. Usually have obviously a quiver full of arrows, and then I've usually got a half a dozen backups with broadheads. I don't know, and then another probably half dozen arrows. And two, now that I'm using that hot melt, I just cut off a little tiny piece of that hot melt and keep it in my hip quiver or whatever I'm doing, my backpack, just so if I need to fix something, I can. But other than that, it's pretty much identical.
Rob, you got anything you want to add?
No, I was just going to ask Blake, you using brass knocks?
Brass knocks. What are you talking
about? You said you keep a couple extra knocks. For your arrow knocks.
For my arrows, yeah, just in case while I'm stumping, I bust one or something like that.
No, that's, you guys have covered it.
I will say last year, like we went in on horseback, like 19 miles or however far it was. Had I been bow hunting, we're taking horses, throwing an extra set of limbs in the saddlebags. Not going to be a huge deal, but like Aaron had pretty well already covered that. Usually going to leave those at the truck.
Yeah. You got anything else to add? You're good on those?
Yeah.
Yeah. Another question I'm getting, increasing amount of, there's been a lot of clicker talk, and I don't want to go into that in great depth. If you have a clicker on your bow and you are a clicker baby, have the repair stuff to rebuild the clicker. If it gets pulled off, and when I say the repair stuff, take a silver Sharpie, circle where if you're using like a cricket clicker or a clicky clicker, where you're putting it in the exact same spot, have the two-face tape ready to go, alcohol pads to clean everything, and clicker cord marked exact, so you're put in the same spot. Those are all important. This was the whole thing we talked about where I practice with one, and use it as a training aid, and then I take it off when I'm hunting, because I don't want to deal with, that kind of crap. But, as far as I just don't like hunting with a clicker on my bow, but if you got to have one, make sure you have everything you need to repair it and marked and everything. So some of the other questions, which we can all answer these, I get broadhead questions constantly. One of the things that I would suggest for guys, if they're the Snyder core system, for example, from Iron Will, if they want to have a few of those in their quiver, but they don't want to be fully loaded with 12.5 or 24 for the year or whatever, one of the other options that you can do, and if you can afford it, great. In my opinion, it's the best broadhead out there. One of the things I did is I took Ethics components. I had to change my arrow length of hair. But what I ended up doing is was able to put a 125 grain head with Ethics components and have the same tune as I do with my Snyder core system. And so I'm shooting 125 grain, and I've been testing a ton of different lower price broadheads, Magnus Stingers, Muzzy Phantoms, Magnus Black Hornets. They're not horrible broadheads. They're not super high end, but if you're going to be whacking pigs or turkeys, and you don't want to fire an Iron Will into it, you want to use that for whitetail or elk or mule deer. You can work your way around that system. Your tune might be a little bit different, so you can't cut your arrows the exact same length. You might have to cut them a little different, but it's very, very doable. And I don't, I love Iron Will. I'm a huge Iron Will fan. If you can't afford Iron Wills for everything, it's not like you shouldn't go in the woods and go shoot a Muzzy Phantom or something. They're not as good of a broadhead, but, if you can only afford some of the Iron Wills, use those for the heavy hitter hunts. There's nothing wrong with that. And you should be able to get, especially out of a stick bow, all of those to hit in the same, spot. You guys got anything to add to that?
Negative. I don't even use Iron Wills all the time. I use Magnus Stingers a lot for pigs and stuff, just because it is painful when you sell those off into the wild blue yonder. Nothing to add.
Rob?
I'm going to unmute myself now. No, nail on the head. We've talked about this, having the best of the best if you can afford it, but not always needing it for sure.
Absolutely not.
The arrow is the next one. I'm shooting Black Eagle X Impacts right now. I think they're an amazing arrow. They are expensive. There's nothing wrong, and I'm a Black Eagle guy. Black Eagle Outlaws, Black Eagle Vintage, Instincts. They're not as expensive. I honestly, if I had to choose an arrow, one of my top three would be a Black Eagle Vintage, which is sacrilege anymore because it's a 246. Which is, when I say 246, a larger diameter than most people use. Standard axis arrows are fine. Great arrows are unbelievable. You don't have to have the most expensive arrow known to man. Just get the arrow that works for you. And I get guys that literally are like thinking about not hunting because they can't afford a $200 a dozen arrow. I don't pay for arrows, and I killed I don't know how much with Black Eagle Vintage. It's one of the cheapest arrows they make, and I love them. So don't stress out about keeping up with the Joneses. Just get an arrow that you can afford that flies good, and don't stress.
Yeah, traditional Vision Quest, those bare bow arrows, that's another good option. There's quite a few Axis traditionals, the Black Eagles, the Vintages. There's a ton of good ones, and most people aren't, especially starting out, you're not going to see the advantages of a skinny over a standard diameter arrow anyway, more than likely. So don't overthink yourself. We get messages a lot of the times, and that, I think people hear what they want to hear when we talk about this stuff, and just don't overthink it. Get something that you can afford, especially starting out, get something that's cheap and get it flying good and go hunt.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing about people hearing what they want to hear, this is off the subject, but I did a podcast with Rod Jenkins about clickers. We did one a few days before that with Dwayne, and I literally just posted a video of my final group last night. And I have a clicker on my bow. I had 3 people message me that said, I thought you were totally against clickers and went away from them. And I listened to the podcast, and I have no idea how they heard that, because I was very clear that I use one for training. I was very clear that I'm just working on not using it. So I think it's important for people when they're listening, if they're getting a vibe of something, or re-listen to it, like, don't hear what you want, hear what's actually said, especially when you're trying to get advice. And so when people hear me talk about an iron will, I don't want them to think that that's the only broadhead. I think that's the best broadhead, but that is certainly not the only broadhead you can go out there with. When I'm shooting X Impact, that is not the only arrow that works. That is just the arrow I'm using right now. And so don't get stuck in a little hole thinking, you know what I mean? You really want to keep your ears open and pay attention to what's being said and not miss out on anything. I don't know how much you guys deal with that. I would say that's probably my number one pet peeve, doing a podcast that people hear what they want to.
We deal with it. I'm sure not near as much as you do, but I think we've all gotten accused at one point or another of selling one product or talking too much about one product, and they fail to hear the part where we explain the backside of that. And there's nothing else. There's no other way we can explain it than the way that we do. I mean, people just hear what they want to hear sometimes, and I don't know.
I get it the other way. I get it from the other side. I get guys like Cody Greenwood claiming that I'm anti-metal riser, and I get pegged I even got anti-trad vane. I've been using trad vanes for like a year now. I get it. I get the other side of it.
Yeah, well, the same thing though, and I think that when you're listening to a podcast, and I've made this comment before, like when you call a dude fat, if he's actually fat, he's probably going to get really defensive. If he knows he's fat and he's dieting, he's okay with it. If he wasn't fat, no, nothing to do with you, but meaning like me, I can get called fat all day long and I don't care. But if you would ask me 20 years ago when I got fat, I was super defensive. If you're listening and you get immediately defensive of people having a discussion, take a big step back and think about it, because whether it be aluminum risers or whatever, like, I know everybody in this group's pretty open-minded about just getting people into traditional archery, just getting in the field, just get what you need to get. You don't need Sitka gear. So, stay open-minded, I guess, when you're listening. Don't get tunnel vision on anything.
100%. At some point, I wanted to talk about that a little bit, because we've taken some heat, some pretty good heat over being open minded. But my base of knowledge is Idaho, and we have the most restrictive equipment regulations. So it's easy for me.
Mechanical.
What's
That's
that?
the big question.
What's that?
Can you shoot a wolf with a mechanical? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
If I lived in a different state where they, allow that Garmin Zero and all that other garbage, I may be a little bit more, maybe militant or that. But I'm pretty easy, man. Like shit, Kenny Marquardt, he's shooting a compound. He's been dabbling with a stick bow. So I don't know. I'm going off on a rail here, but it is something that really doesn't really grind on me, but it sticks in my craw a little bit.
Well, I come from the other end of the spectrum where down here you can use everything but a few pounds of C4.
Well, that's funny. When you talk about like open-minded or whatever, like this new shoot we're doing, or the best of the best shoot, I think it was pretty hard for people to wrap their head around. As far as dates went, this was the most open date we had, and it was during the Colorado High Country shoot, which is a huge traditional shoot. And I get that, but it's a totally different. It's like walking into a Catholic church preaching Catholicism. They're already all Catholics, right? They're already converted. What this shoot does is and this is really off on a tangent, but it integrates traditional guys and compound guys, and it converts people over to a traditional bow. And because they're side by side by a me or a Blake, or we got Dan coming out, who's a great shot, seeing how fun it is, how proficient you can be. You know, you're smoking and joking and making fun of each other. It's a lot of crap talking. It's a lot of fun. It to me, the biggest benefit of this shoot was letting people see what you can do with a stick bow in the right hands, what hard work can get you. And it is a very lethal way and a very fun way to put an animal on the ground in front of a bunch of very elite and very high-end compound shooters. And I know it converts people over because they're seeing what they're missing. I wish we would have had this when I had a compound in my hand, and we didn't. And again, same thing, open-minded. I don't care that guys shoot a compound. 2 days ago, I took all Luke's money. I was the only stick bow guy. 8 people. I didn't mind. Showing people how accurate can be. And all of those guys have bought stick bows that I shoot with to screw around with. Will they convert over eventually? Who knows? But it is good to see how fun it can be. It's a great way to do it.
Luke doesn't have any problem giving money away. It seems like he gives money away often.
I won a lot from him this last go around. Yeah, and I've been shooting good, but what we did, and this keeps it fair. I shoot from the orange stakes, which is a stake in from the compound stake. So my average distance is, 33 to 34 yards, somewhere in there. Their average distance is probably closer to 46, 47. So it wasn't like I was shooting side by side, against Luke, although I have before. But I'm trying to get ready for this shoot because I don't want Dan to beat my ass or Blake. And we do teams, do 3 and 3, right? And so I'm the stick bow guy, and then one of the guys on the other team is generally a crappy compound shooter, although that doesn't ever work out for him because I'm generally, fairly high score. And it evens things out, and it's fun. And I'm showing compound guys you can be lethal with a stick bow. It's a great way to do it. And there's a few. I know, Blake, you've had some issues. He's the same dude that's talking crap about me on Facebook right now, who's like, "Oh, well, it just integrate a crossbow or just whatever." It's very narrow-minded. He probably gets cold in his mom's basement. The best way to show off things is put it in front of somebody. And I think that getting around compound guys is a great way to show, that a stick bow is accurate and lethal.
Well, I don't know. I'll speak for myself. And if the shoe was on the other foot and I was a compound guy and I was going to this shoot and you were in my group or Dan was in my group or whatever, and I saw how well y'all were shooting the stick bow, I would immediately, the thing that would be in the back of my head the entire shoot is like, give me that damn thing. Like, I could do that. Like, they could do that. I could do that. It's just it's like you said, it's just showing people what they're capable of. And that's what got me interested in the first place is the, the amount of dedication that it takes to be that accurate one, but it just, not just that, but it's possible. It's also possible to suck because the last round of 3Ds I shot horrible, but good days and bad, I guess.
Yeah. I know, Rob. I mean, you're very old. Your hunting partner's been a compound guy. I mean, what are your thoughts on all this? It seems to be working. We get some naysayers, but man, the integrating. I'm looking at it from me, from the compound perspective. Is I just wish I had stick bow guys around me where I would have swapped over sooner.
I've had the opportunity to watch this for a long time because I've been a stick bow side for a long time, and legitimately I wasn't doing it because I thought I was better than anybody. I have a funny backstory of why I got into a stick bow, and it just stuck. I enjoy it. I enjoy trying to do stuff that's harder. So watching it all come full circle, almost. I wouldn't say full circle, but it's getting there. It was in my sphere of influence. Influence is the wrong word, but just like the people that I interact with, I look at so many of them. 15 years ago, we were all shooting together, and they're all compound, and I'm the only stick bow guy. And then I go down to the range, and I won't say every one of them, but 90% of them are shooting a stick bow. And it's not because I beat them in a submission. It was just because we were having fun, and they saw how much fun it was, and they saw me killing stuff, and I mean, I don't shoot to you guys' level, but I'm killing stuff, they're killing stuff, and pretty soon they're like, well, he's doing it with a stick bow. I should be able to do it with a stick bow. That's just my little world. It's much bigger than that because they're seeing guys like you, like laying stuff down like a tornado, and it shows people that it's possible, and it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be beat into submission, or you don't have to be belittled. It's cool, man. Try it. Get closer and shoot stuff. That's the 30,000 foot view that I have.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I don't mind hunting with the compound guy at all. And this may sound bad, but just for the simple reason that, like, hey, this, I don't know if I can get close enough on this dog, but you might be able to get to 50 or 60. Why don't you go on? I mean, just stuff like that. It doesn't bother me one bit. It actually kind of, I don't know, usually works out pretty good from my experience anyways. Aaron, you hunt with Frank all the time. He's a compound guy. You hunt with Scotty all the time. He's a compound guy. I would assume that y'all kind of have the same thing going on there.
Yeah, same thing. And for those people listening in that are compound shooters, which you guys get a lot of that in stick bow guys, the thing that you need to wrap your mind around, or at least me, when I first swapped over, and the thing I try to translate to people is, you're not going to be hanging your badge of honor on your chest on an extreme shot. You're going to be hanging your badge of honor on getting closer and outwitting the animal with skills more so than technology. And if you find that intriguing and you've lost the love for archery and you really want to focus on something different other than technology, pick up a stick bow. And that really sings to a lot of people that may have taken shooting far too, like I did. I took shooting that distance way too far. And I fully admit that. Whacking an animal at 100 yards at a blink of an eye wasn't anything I ever worried about. Where now I'm like, yeah, I really like the adrenaline rush of getting close. So talking it through people, letting them know, that you're going into the woods to get closer than you are to use technology. And that sings to people. People like that.
Well, I'll use myself as an example. It was a badge. Like if you say, hey, I shot a deer at, 70 something yards. That was something that you told people because it was cool. Like that sounds horrible, but I'm just telling you that's how a lot of people think. Well, now, I've shot a couple things pretty far distances with a stick bow, and I almost don't want to tell people because I don't think of it as it's a cool thing anymore. So it's funny how everything's kind of flipped around where I'm almost, if I have to shoot something far away, I will, but it's not something that I want to talk about necessarily.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, we don't need to beat this horse to death probably anymore, but I think people are getting the idea.
No, I will say that I didn't start this podcast with the plan of, with converting people. I was just telling hunting stories and stuff. But, guys like you and guys like Blake, you guys bridge that gap. And we talk about bridging the gap. And it's amazing to me, like running into people and, say, hey, I love the podcast. I'm thinking of picking up a stick bow, or I did pick up a stick bow. I share some of those messages, and Blake does too. It just blows me away. And so, yeah. It does certainly bridge the gap and kind of mend the fences a little bit. I mean, you would agree with that, right? Aaron, you saw it was like 4 years ago, right? This is like mending the fences.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'm not going to dive into that too much.
Really?
I think that, I think that, when you talk about like mending the fences, that what am I trying to say here? Kind of getting off the subject with the same subject. I started
when I started doing all this, it was off more of a dare because I had gotten a lot of messages about I wouldn't be able to kill anything because I was using technology as a crutch, which I totally was. And obviously it's consumed me or whatever. But one of the reasons that I post videos, and I think probably we're all the same way of being accurate with the stick, isn't because I need a bunch of people to hit like and say you're awesome. It's because I know compound guys are seeing that and they're like, oh my, it can be accurate, right? It can be, it can be lethal and what you can do. And then one of the reasons I post, what the arrow did and talk about it is so people know you're not just out there winging arrows at crap, hoping for the best. You can be very lethal with it, but you need to have the mindset that you are, going to use your skill set more than you are your technology. And again, I think it's working great. I mean, I get a ton of, well, we all do, tons of messages. Guys are ready for that, and I'm really happy to see it.
Yeah. Haters gonna hate, bro.
Yeah. What is that? A goofy thing on that movie? They hate you because they ain't you? Is that what it is?
Yeah. They hate us because they ain't us.
Yeah. Oh, I got you. I'm a little slow. I got you. Yeah. A bear in sub 3 seconds. It works.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and let's talk about in general. Without going into a total bash fest of mechanical broadheads and TV shows, one of the things that I was very amazed with shooting 85 to 90 pounds of the compound in a mechanical is lack of pass-throughs, right? Like, then I pick up the stick shooting a whopping 170 some feet per second, and I am zipping through everything. And I'm like, okay, I need to reassess my knowledge base and what I think I know, because I don't know shit. Because I'm like, I'd never really shot cut on contact heads. I'd never, you know what I mean? Like I'd throw on some broadheads or whatever, but like when I fixed blade broadheads, but I'm breaking offside legs with a stick bow. And I was just like, I mean, it was like, how when you find somebody, it finds like Jesus, and then they won't stop talking about religion, and you're like, all right, we got it. You found Jesus. Please shut up and leave me alone. That was me with the stick in penetration. I'm like, guys, you would not believe this to anybody I knew shooting mechanicals, and I'm not saying mechanicals are bad. I'm just they're not a fixed blade, and so the lethality of the stick and the setup, I was just like, holy cow, this is unbelievable. What it's doing. And again, I shot, I don't know, 15, 20 different deer the one year. And there's probably 6 deer on the offside leg. I broke it in half, shooting 170 some feet per second. And I just think getting that point across the compound, guys, is important.
Yeah, no, I was blown away. The first deer I shot with my stick bow, opening morning of deer season in, I guess it was 2019 or 2018. Yeah, I went right through both scapulas and into the dirt on the other side, and I mean it's crazy. It blew me away. You think you're out there just lobbing noodles at them, and it's quite the contrary.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Is there any other stuff you guys want to cover? We've been on for a while, and I mean there's all kinds of crap I could talk about, but I think that some of this is good because it's the 200 episode, and getting the word out of how to kind of spread the word is important.
No, again, I thank you for helping the podcast get to where it is. I mean, you've been a big part of it. You and I messaged back and forth about doing a giveaway for the 200th episode. We were going to give away one of our iron will knives, and yeah, looking forward to it, and just saying thanks to the listeners. I mean, it's been quite a ride. Nothing like I expected.
Oh, yeah, and you've grown. Did you think you'd grow like you'd have?
Dude, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, I've only been around for, I don't know, probably 50 episodes now, Rob, don't you think?
It feels like 150, dude.
Like a bad marriage. No, I mean, obviously I can't thank Aaron enough for, not only what he does for the podcast, but just what he does for the community in general. And, yeah, man, it's, and thanks to Rob, especially for, asking me to come on here and give my 2 cents sometimes. And, yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to where this thing's going to keep going. It's certainly, even since I've been here, taken off. So, pretty exciting stuff. And, like I said, thanks to Aaron for helping. He's certainly a huge help, big part of that. So he's kind of the honorary co-host.
I remember when Aaron first came on the first episode, and Aaron, you know me well enough now. I got to see something before I believe it. And I asked you in that first episode you were on, I said, dude, like, cause you do so much for traditional archery and you really are promoting it. I said, I don't get it. What's in it for you? And you kind of got pissed. You kind of got pissed at me, but it was legitimate. I'm like, I don't get you, dude. Why are you doing all this?
I think, and I totally get it, because I am the way I am, and I've had multiple conversations, strangely enough, in the last few weeks. One of the reasons that when I did that Justin Walsky podcast and I was calling him a fat ass, thinking I was texting my wife and I was texting him.
Yeah, it
truly showed my character and how I am as a person. Like, I will give someone the shirt off my back. I'll do whatever I can for them. But, a buddy called me the other day and said, hey, I need new insoles. I might get new boots. I've got plantar fasciitis. Can you imagine what I told him? I was like, hey, you drop 50 pounds. That's what's going to get rid of your plantar fasciitis. Quit eating Tohos and Ding Dongs. Probably not the most politically correct thing to say. I could have sugarcoated it, but I got the point across. Well, I really like helping people. I wish I would have started shooting a stick bow early. I've given up a ton of money shooting a stick bow from, obviously, endorsement contracts and crap, and I don't mind that at all. I truly just want, at 44 years old, starting at 40, I missed a lot of what I wish I could have had earlier by shooting a stick bow. And I'm just hoping to help people not have that happen, as strange as that probably sounds.
It's good stuff, man.
You mean you're not getting rich off shooting a stick bow? I can't believe it.
Oddly enough, not laying down the endorsement contracts. And, I need to run on with this. Give you an example, though. Levi Morgan makes $1 million a year from Matthews to shoot a Matthews bow. Generally, $40,000 to $60,000 is the big three: a weapon, optics, clothing contract. You just don't get that with a stick bow. There's nothing wrong with that. It's growing. I know few people get paid that I know to shoot a stick bow, run social media pages, promote, whatever. It's just smaller, but it's growing. And what my hope is, and not so I can get paid, but just so as it grows, we have a bigger foothold, we have a bigger voice, we have a stronger voice. And some of these companies do start to be able to make more money and put more effort into, Trent Wingard. He's 24 months out. Trent's an awesome guy, right? I don't think he probably expected to be that busy. How nice was it to see a guy as nice as Trent, as he grows, get his own building and everything else, and grow with the sport? Because you couldn't ask. I mean, literally, Trent is the guy that I would have hoped. Not saying my daughter didn't marry a nice guy if they listen to this podcast, but Trent is the guy you hope your daughter marries, right? I mean, he's awesome.
He's an awesome
and
guy.
So being able to help.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. The Black Widow guys are awesome. South is awesome. Being able to help them grow, support their families just by doing something simple like promoting the sport, I'm super excited. We're all able to do that, and then I'm able to be a part of it.
Now, you talk about Trent. I don't know the guy. I've never met him, nothing. And I just have exchanged social media messages with him a time or two. And one day I called him about something. I was asking about something, and hell, it was like an hour later. I finally got off the phone with him, just sitting there talking, and just a super good dude.
I got to tell. I shot with him and his kids over at Western States a few weeks ago. I got to tell a story. Like I don't know how many. 1, 2, 3. There's 3 or 4 of the boys there, and they're just little shavers. And Every target we run up to, every target we get to, they're running up to, and it looks like Agincourt. There's freaking arrows in the air just launching, and these kids are running and getting the arrows and launching them again. It was hysterical. It was so funny. Those kids like to shoot, and Trent is an awesome dad too.
Yeah, he's a good dude. Some of the nicest people I've met. Like Trent, the Black Widow guys, guys I'm naming off. But I mean, I wouldn't have had the relationship if I wouldn't have picked up a stick bow. Not to say there's bad guys in compound, but it's good to see it grow. I'm glad it's growing like it is, and it looks like it's not slowing down. So that's awesome.
10-4.
Right on. You guys ready to get out of here?
Yeah, I'm gonna go eat dinner.
I need to go shoot so I don't get my ass kicked here in a couple weeks. After that last outing, I had to lay my bow down for a couple days. It was Cameron beat me for the first time ever.
I'm glad you brought this up because I got to weigh in this. I didn't realize that this is a course that Aaron's shooting all the time. I'm calling foul on that.
100%. I won't argue with that. It's not only my home course; it is a very, very difficult home field course. Meaning, I just shot with Tony and Tanner Klim, who shoot ASAs all over the world. And Tony came off; he didn't clean it, and he was like, "Dude, I've never not cleaned an ASA and known pro." And he didn't clean it. And he's like, "These guys come and shooting side hills." Well, Blake was there, off footing, side hills, steep angles. Yeah, totally. I'm not going to deny that. It's like the ball's well in my court. It's like I need it because I got 8-pound, 9-ounce trad baby Jesus to try to beat and Blake. Dan guy, Blake and I might have to give him dead legs or something the night before. That kid is good.
We're gonna get him super drunk the night before is what we're gonna do. He's not of age, is he?
No, he can't even. Yeah,
well, that's good.
When Luke's by him, I'm going to start yelling, "Luke, sweep the leg," to get him all freaked out.
Oh my gosh! Did you really just say that?
Might have to edit that.
This is like having the Super Bowl at your home field. I mean, this totally. Matter of fact, you should spot these guys some points, Aaron.
Yeah, we need a handicap, bro.
Yeah.
I'm not spotting any. I'm going over there. I've been over there like the last days working on it, like practicing. I mean, they're moving the targets and the stakes, but for the tournament. But I mean, it's 15 minutes from my house. I'm not going to, for the greater good of being fair, not shoot the course. Like, no, I'm going to opt out, boys. I want to be fair to you. Hell no, I'm practicing that thing every
How many
day.
points should he spot, Blake? This has got to be graded on the curve.
I already told him. I didn't give him an option. I'm like, I'm coming up a day earlier, and you're taking me to go shoot, bro.
Right. I told Dan the same thing.
I invited myself.
Yeah, I told Dan the same thing. I'm like, hey, we'll all go over and, shoot the course, and you guys can take a look at it or whatever.
I actually think
it makes a big difference.
I think this episode,
for me anyway.
I think this episode drops that you guys shooting on a Saturday. I think this drops on a Sunday.
Yeah, well. Look at your Instagram feed. If I'm not posting anything, it's because I got my ass kicked.
Well, Blake, I want to hear the number, Blake. How many points should he have to spot you?
If I'm within 15 points of Aaron, I'll call that a pretty good
15,
victory.
That's. I'll check with Vegas and see what the odds are. You're calling 15.
I want to hit 170. Like honestly, that's my goal. If I shoot above 170, no matter if Aaron beats me or Dan beats the hell out of me or whatever, like. I'll be pretty happy.
Don't be
that.
humble. That's not the crap you've been talking to me.
No, that's legit though. If I shoot above 170, I'll be pretty happy.
I think what I'm going to do is copy The Rock, and when like Daniel and Blake are at full draw, I'm going to be like, focus, and freak them the hell out.
Your voodoo mind games don't work on me. I went through that last year.
So poor Dan's gonna go. Poor Dan's gonna go like. Dan's gonna look like Nancy Kerrigan the night before, grabbing his knee. Why me?
Yeah, dude, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, he's a good dude. I'm excited to get him up here and help him out. Really, when I say help him out, like obviously if he starts shooting all over the place or whatever, like I don't have any issue, sponsoring him through Kifaru. I think that'll be awesome. I'm excited.
Cool.
Well, bros.
Right on. Wrap it.
Cool. I appreciate everything, guys.
Oh, we do.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, for real. Thanks for everything, man.
Yep, no problem at all. I'm going to go hang out with the wife. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, later.